So good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. Hey, Neil, like to start from the top. Give us the whole spiel. What is Neil about? What have you done in your career? Where did you start? How have you ended up where you are now? Give us the whole thing.
Oh, wow. That's starting with a big
take
question.
your time.
Oh, man, so this could take a while. I'll try to do the short version. Grew up in data analytics. Sorry, let me start again. I should start with what's most important, which is family and friends and where I live before we get too deep on the business stuff. So I'll go really quick. As we speak, I'm just outside of Toronto, Canada. I love it. Proud Canadian. I wish I was with you guys, however, nicer and warmer, but I am a proud Canadian. Grew up here, traveled all around the world for different opportunities and businesses, worked in Boston for a little bit, traveled and like many of us for different opportunities. 4 kids. I'm an old man. Kids range from 17 to 23. I'm blessed enough to work with one of them in one of the businesses I have, which we can talk about later, and a wonderful wife and family. So I'm very blessed and very grateful for everything. From a business perspective, grew up in, like many of us, in a big career, in a big corporate world. Before I got into entrepreneurship and startups and advising and mentoring, I came out of school, got a job. I worked with a company called Nielsen for a long time, big market research data company, huge, not so big anymore. Probably a good Harvard Business Review one day to say, how did that company go from controlling the world of data to not so much? But I learned a ton and was a wonderful company for many years. Ended up on the executive team there and got other opportunities. Worked at a big telco. I was a Deloitte management consultant for a few years. Lots of different things. Working for other people. My last role was a full-time CRO for a software and DaaS, data as a service company out of Toronto. COVID hit and parted ways and decided it was time for me to do my own thing. I always believe that everyone should work for someone else at their career. Very important. However, I do wish that I started my own thing, my own business sooner in my career. Now that I'm doing it, I just absolutely love it. I can't see myself ever going back as a employee and working for someone else. That doesn't mean I'm not grateful for it. I'm only successful now because of all the things I learned. But I do wish I kind of cut the cord and did my own thing a decade earlier, if you will. I'm now a fractional CRO running my own business, working with lots of different earlier stage or small to mid-sized companies, lots of different scenarios, and mostly in the SaaS and technology space, but a couple others pop up here and there that are a good fit. I am so passionate about it. I love it. I love the challenges. I love meeting new CEOs and working and coaching them. As much as I'm building teams and processes and coaching AEs, I'm also working with and coaching the CEO, because that's why they brought me in, because they needed that help. And I get energized by it. I love it. I'm doing better than I've ever done from a happiness factor, from a financial factor. So I'm over the moon with this stage of my career. And then on the side, which sounds ridiculous because it's hard enough running your own business, a side hustle. I founded a community with my son, his name's Hunter, called Porch. And Porch is a community for immigrant entrepreneurs coming to or already in Canada. And it's a membership-based community. We run events. We have all kinds of support functions. We meet. We have Slack. We do in-person events. We do a weekly Zoom with guest speakers, all kinds of things. And it's going very well. I've made money and helped people make money my whole career. This is the most important thing I've done in my career. It relates to just helping people for the sake of helping people. And it's amazing. And my heart's filled with happiness to help people. And so it's awesome. So those are the 2 things I'm doing now, Fractional CRO and Porch, and doing it with my son is also very special.
So very cool. I obviously want to come back to Porch and what you're doing there in terms of giving back. But Neil, you mentioned a couple of things that if you had your way, you would have come off the corporate hamster wheel 10, 20 years ago. So can you reflect on your journey when you were at Nielsen and Deloitte and all these big firms? What stopped you from doing that? Why didn't you jump earlier? Why didn't you go into your beast mode 20
That's
years ago, 10 years ago?
It's a great question. And I sound a bit like a wimp when I think I'm going to give you my answer, but it's the reality. And that is, I think we all have different risk factors or different things that make us say, take a jump or not take a jump. To be fair, I wasn't thinking at the time, why am I doing this? Why don't I start a new job? I was happy. I was working for people. I was doing okay. There wasn't this like pulling of I should quit and start my own job, which I guess tells me I didn't want to be an entrepreneur bad enough. That was a constant thought in my head. It was just in the background, especially as I started to get into advising startups because I became senior enough where people wanted to work with me and learn from me. So there wasn't much of that other than there was times where when I might have been thinking about it, that the stage of my life, especially with kids, made me stop and think and say, hey, I got a good job. I make decent money. Do I really want to give that up? And for whatever reason, I was a little risk averse and I just didn't pull any triggers or even come close. It was COVID and the parting of ways that made me say, okay, now I have this opportunity. And what should I do with the next stage? Should I go and apply and find a new job where I can be the CRO? Or is this a signs too dramatic? Was this an opportunity to do something I've always wanted to do? And as I reflected on that, I did think I was tired. I was frustrated. To be blunt, I didn't enjoy anymore the idea of arbitrary targets and a CEO who would say, you need to achieve this, and waking up every day saying, I know I'm doing a good job, but the stress that maybe someone didn't like me well enough means I might not have a job the next day. I was just tired of that stress of worrying, especially with a family. And so I just wanted to be in control of my own destiny, I think, more.
I think we get that. The political side of the job no one talks about, right? But having to appease people and fit into a box to be able to make sure your job is safe. It definitely weighs down on you. I've gone through a very similar journey. Like I'm pretty comfortable not being in the corporate wheel anymore and being on the other side. And I don't think I'd ever go back either. But the timing was interesting because I think since COVID, we've seen a massive rise in fractional roles, the way people are seeing it. Seeing fractional roles appear. How have you seen that change in the last 2 years?
Yeah. And on a fractional, so yeah, thank you for saying that. Fractional's gone crazy, of course. There's lots of different schools of thoughts there. And in my perspective, in many ways, fractional is no different than it was many years ago when people were outsourcing their finance function to an outsourced finance firm. But they didn't call it fractional. It was just like a outsourcing finance firm or something. And in many ways, nothing's changed. And in other ways, there's definitely a movement and trend towards the word fractional, which wasn't used like years ago. Also, I think how people engage. So there's still these outsourced firms and that people outsource their work to, no different. Agencies and financial shops and IT shops, you name it. Today, they just might call themselves fractional instead of something else because they aren't trying to leverage that. But there is definitely an explosion of people like me, let's call them solopreneurs or whatever, that are saying, hey, I could be successful and run a business and everything's got pros and cons, but for some people, it's a great fit. And they're building a business around being fractional, especially with or at least for me, from a CRO perspective, every function's different. Like a fractional CTO or a fractional CFO could exist in a business for a long period of time, but fractional CRO is more, in my opinion anyway, only for the very beginning of a journey, because at some point, when you're big enough, you're going to want a full-time CRO. You just don't necessarily need them on day one or even 6 months in or a year in. It depends on the business. So there's an explosion then, I think, also, Sean, with all the layoffs that have been happening over the last couple of years, in tech especially, of course. Everyone and their brother and sister and mom and dad have said, hey, I'm looking for a job. Why don't I just call myself a fractional VP of sales? And let's be honest, it looks better than sitting on your butt and just nothing. So it helps them from a profile perspective. I think 90% of those people are not going to be fractionals very long. They're going to go back to find a job when they find one. And it's not for everyone. Right? Some people love it. Some people don't love it. But
I think you touched on a couple of good points there, Neil. Just as a fellow CRO sitting in a seat, wanting to then understand the difference between fractional consultants and advisors. What is it? Because whilst the rise of fractional has been huge in the North American market, where tech's been probably hit the hardest, I think Sean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in this part of the world, there still hasn't been that much of that uptake, or I think it's perhaps a lack of clarity. I personally don't even understand what's the difference between me as an early stage founder engaging a consultant for a period of time versus a fractional CRO, as you mentioned. So let's put things into context. So if I am sub 10 million ARR company, I'm the CEO, I definitely need that person, but I can't afford someone with the hefty bill. So help me kind of work through that, Neil.
Sure. I love it. Just quickly on Australia, New Zealand, you mentioned. So there is a lot of fractionals there. You may or may not be aware of some different communities. So I'm in a community based out of Australia. I know lots of fractionals there. There's a gentleman named Zachary King, who runs a community of, I'm going to make up a number here because I don't have it in front of me, but a few hundred different fractional people in there. So it's definitely growing for sure. Like most things in Canada's like a small percentage of the US, it's nowhere as big as it is in the US. I think Australia and Canada are probably similar. But I just wanted to mention that in case you weren't aware. But Zach King's awesome. Also, if you don't know. So you're a CEO, 1 to 10 million ARR, growing, and you need a hand. And you're right. If you hire a full-time CRO, you're $200,000-300,000, $500,000 with commission, and it's expensive. If you're anyone decent anyway. And that doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of companies, depending on their stage. The experience is extremely valuable, right? How do you avoid those pitfalls and mistakes? So there's a couple of things, and there's actually, it's almost funny. You can talk to 10 different people, and they'll have 10 different opinions on what is a fractional versus an advisor. But I'll give you what I think. In this hypothetical, the CEO can say, I need help. There's different types of help. To me, an advisor, and I try to separate the words a little bit. A CEO might have an advisor to help them on certain things. Now, in my experience and from what I see out there, generally speaking, an advisor, as we all know, quote unquote, startup advisor, they get equity, not usually cash, and they get some kind of percentage, and there's all kinds of guides on how much they should get or not get. And they might work for an hour a week or even less. And all they're doing is meet with the CEO, generally, or the executive team. And it's literally just advice. No dirty hands. They're not diving in and doing anything. They're just giving advice. And that's extremely valuable, but very different than what I do as a fractional CRO, but still very valuable. And that's existed, as we know, for decades, right? Just started advice. The second part would be a consultant. A lot of people interchange these words, and that's fine. All power to them. People can call themselves whatever they want. But I believe a consultant is more somebody who comes in with a scope of work. Ricky wants to hire me. Ricky says, I need the following 3 projects done. I create a scope of work. I do them. I deliver them. And 9 times out of 10, if you want anything else, I say, hold on, that's not part of my scope of work.
Variation.
No, we can't do that. And consultants have a ton of value, obviously. $1 billion companies are based on consulting model. But usually they're based on a very clear scope of work, and you're paying for that expertise and the person's time. And in many cases, at least big consultancies, they just charge by the hour, right? You have the partner involved. Sorry, not necessarily by the hour, but an hourly fee. You want the partner to do the work? It's $500 an hour. But if you can do it with junior people, it's $200 an hour. And all that goes into the model, and it's $79,000 later, and we'll deliver you a presentation. And I was a consultant, and so I'm not saying it's not good.
It's a good presentation, though. Seriously,
presentation. It's beautiful. So best presentation you'll ever see. But again, very different than what I believe a fractional CRO or a fractional CMO should be doing. to me, the fractional CRO, or I'll just tell you what I do, is about getting your hands dirty. When a CEO says, Neil, what does our engagement look like? This sounds really interesting. What does an engagement look like, Neil? My answer is, you should expect me, and there's a couple exceptions for me, but generally, Ricky, you should expect me to do anything that your full-time CRO would do. I'm just doing it a day a week instead of 5 days a week. Now, that comes with some challenges, of course, right? That comes with challenges if it's only a day a week. But one day you might want me coaching your team. The next day you and I are talking. The next day we're building a new sales process. Next day I'm figuring out messaging on sales. The business changes all the time. And the idea of the startup and the fractional CRO is, you don't want me to have a scope of work. You want me to be all in, get my hands dirty, and help you do what's ever needed to run the business. You just don't want to pay $1 million, so we're going to do it 1 day a week. You're getting my experience, right? And by the way, 1 day a week, at least in my case, isn't every Monday. It's like the equivalent of a day over the course of the week, right? So that's, to me, the biggest difference is that you're just paying me for the value that I believe is fair for a day-ish a week of time, or 2 days a week, whatever it is. But I want you to treat me as you would any CRO, and I want you to have those expectations of me, right? And you're going to, like any CRO, I'm going to do whatever I think is right to help you grow the business. There might be some priorities and some focus areas, but ultimately there's no scope of work. It's just, you're paying me for 6 months, for a day a week, and I'm going to do everything I can to help.
And in return, you're getting someone who's been there, done it, actually been in the trenches at, as you say, like a fractional of a cost, right?
And, you're getting tons of value too on things like if you're building your team, right? If you bring in a fractional CRO who might have a big network and help you grow the team and bring in people. So there's all kinds of, depending what you need to get done, tons of value there that you might get.
You sold me on it, Neil.
Great question. Yes, for sure. We both know that sometimes as CEOs don't know what the priorities are, but they think they do. Sometimes, it's rarely where I've been in a situation where they say, I don't know what to do. They say, here's what I think we need to fix. And so we generally start there. However, most of the time, I start with what I call a diagnostic, an audit, an analysis. So I'll always talk to them, say, hey, what's going on? Where do you think you're good? Where do you think you need help? Usually it's because they've reached out or what have you, and we dive into the problems of the business. But ultimately, I'll say, hey, if you want me to, I'll do a full diagnostic, right? So the first few weeks, I'm going to talk to everyone in the company. I'm going to meet people. I'm going to interview them. I'm going to look at your processes and look at your data. Hopefully they have some data. If not, that's another, obviously, to do on the list. But I'll go through everything and I'll end up with a bunch of paper and recommendations to say, here's why I think you're doing okay. Here's where I see a lot of opportunity for improvement. Here's my recommendations. Now, based on that, what do you think? It's your business. Where do you agree with my recommendations? Do you want me to implement any of this? Or do you want to debate this a little bit? Generally, part of my engagements would include, what does this actually look like? What does good look like? And helping them decide where to focus time from.
Current state to desired state. Neil, you also mentioned that with what you're doing now, obviously we'll come back to Porch, but overall you're much happier. Financial freedom and all that is a bonus, and it's amazing. However, a lot is also about giving back. And I see that what you're doing as BeFractional is also teaching others, or at least coaching, or at least guiding others on how to do this correctly. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in BeFractional, what it's all about, and where did that idea come from?
Sure. No, wow. I feel like I need to pay you a lot of money for all these wonderful questions to help me here. Thank you for the question. So yeah, I'm a big, like you guys, and giving back in what you're doing in so many ways. And I'm assuming all your listeners, of course, know how amazing you guys are and how much you guys give back, but I'm impressed as hell. But I'm a big community guy. So I lead in Pavilion. There's a big, what most people might have heard of it, but a big, wonderful group called Pavilion. I'm the, they call it an envoy. It's at the chair, if you will, of the fractional and consultant and advisor channel in Pavilion. And I do that because I want to help and give back. And selfishly, I learn a ton by doing so. And so I'm really into community. I'm in Zach's community based in Australia. There's another one called Fractional. So I'm a big community. I love just helping and giving back. And I believe so deeply that while it makes me happy to help others, I also selfishly learn a ton, and it benefits me, and I meet people, and it presents opportunities. It is giving back first and foremost, but I benefit from it. For sure I do. So that's first and foremost. BeFractional is a course. We wanted to help out. Then there's two sides to that. We wanted to build a course, me and a couple friends, Henning Schwinn and John Williams, who are also experienced fractional people. I won't go into too much detail, but anyone listening should check them out. They're wonderful too. And we decided to build a course because we felt like there was a bit of a gap in the marketplace. And there's a lot of people out there that have courses of different kind, but we felt that we had something to offer, and so we wanted to build a course. And the first course we did, which is going on right now, was pay whatever you want, because we wanted to help people. We know there's a lot of people getting started and trying to learn about fractional. I also do one-on-one coaching for people like that, but we wanted to just get a lot of people together and learn from each other. So we just said, hey, you want to pay us $10 for the course or $500? No judgment. It's up to you. Pay what you can. It wasn't a lot. And we had money all over the map, which was an interesting experiment in its own right. I won't publicly talk about, but we had money all over the map. It was very interesting to see the differences of people. All good. We offered it and we love it. And so we got 20-something people in this course, which we purposely kept very small. And we're running it right now, and it's awesome, and I'm learning, and it's enjoyable. Our subsequent cohorts will be a set fee because we do have a lot of work and time going into it. So there will be a set fee going forward, like most. But our first cohort was anything you want to pay is that. So that was our helping, trying to help out 20 people and grow and get better and so on.
Yeah, nice. And then eventually coming to Porch, you mentioned you're working with Hunter, your son. That's a privilege in itself. Where did that idea come about? Helping immigrant entrepreneurs either settle in Canada, or as you said, they might have been there already. What are you actually trying to achieve through that mission, and what is the overarching mission at Porch?
Yeah, I love it. You guys know better than most people how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. We can talk till we're blue in the face about how difficult it is. Even the best companies and the best people still have a very low chance, and that's what we all sign up for. Immigrant entrepreneurs are 10 times harder than that. And I'm sure it's the same for any immigrant going to any country. And it is true for any person coming to Canada. It's a new market. It's a new world, new rules, new everything. Sadly and pathetically, it's unfair in many ways, and people don't treat them the same way and the right way. There's stigmatisms and prejudice and racism. And so it's really freaking hard to be an entrepreneur, and 10 times as hard to be an immigrant. The government of Canada has the right intent. Like, we open the doors and say, come on in, generally, in my opinion, and I hope they're not listening, poor execution in many ways. Right?
I hope they are listening.
Me too. I do.
Yeah.
I'm not shy. The right intent, but not always the best execution. They make it way harder than it needs to be. Right? We've got people who should be doctors driving cabs. It's just ridiculous. And they don't want to be doing that. They want to use their skills and expertise and intelligence. We felt that we could help, not by creating some incredible technology or building some big infrastructure and more websites and more clicks and buttons. That ain't enough. That's not what's helping. We just thought people with love and support all together can just help one another. And that's it. There's no rocket science. It's simply that if an immigrant entrepreneur has a question, a challenge, a problem, a frustration, you don't need to go talk to Pavilion, call the government, wait on hold for 27 freaking hours, or trying to figure out how to work the website that even I can't figure out. They just come into Porch, you ask the question, and 27 people will say, I can help you. I've done that before. Who needs a hand? Or we're running an event where you can talk. Or we have a session that we're talking about how credit cards work in Canada, or how to raise funds in Canada if you're at that stage. We do all kinds of different topics. Even if we're not talking about it proactively as a work session, we have hundreds and hundreds of people who are simply there to help one another. And we vet everybody. This is not like a marketplace community where anyone gets in. We have applications. We make sure. Because the most important part of the community is the culture of the community. That everybody is there because they want to learn and help each other. And that's the only reason it works, is because when Sean asks a question, I need people to want to help Sean, or actually, it fails. And so we make sure people are wanting to do that and understand why they're coming to Porch. And so it's our job to create that camaraderie and culture and love, if you will, to make it work. And it's working really well. And we're like so pumped.
So very cool. I just did a post, in fact, about being a child of immigrant parents. The only pathway to success, as I ever knew, was corporate role, steady paycheck. So I think the fact you're offering an alternative ladder for people to climb is awesome. I think both the nations, obviously Australia and New Zealand, much the same, another Commonwealth country, except people with open arms, but perhaps don't provide the services you providing at Porch. So we'll watch that journey of you and Hunter there, Neil, closely and see how we can help in any shape or form. But switching up a gear a little bit, you've coming back to go-to-market strategies for a minute. You've been part of businesses at corporate level, scale-up, startups. What are some of the things or the patterns or trends that you've identified that they all suffer, and where do your expertise come in? Where do you start? How do you break it down? What's your go-to?
Yeah, okay. A lot there. We could go in lots of different directions there, obviously. And every business...
You pick a direction.
Yeah. And every business is different, right? Like today I'm working with a company in legal technology that sells into law firms. And last week it was a very different company, more in the healthcare space. And of course, hopefully, like every good CRO, it's all about figuring out a strategy and how to go to market in the right way. Is it just a cookie cutter? Is not just, this worked here, so and we'll have the same plan, which sadly happens a lot.
Really?
Happens a lot, as you guys know, again, better than most. But really thinking through what's the right approach for this ICP, for this buyer persona, for this problem that's being solved. And it can vary greatly. I think probably, and I know you guys probably talked about this a lot lately, but it's important, which is the whole idea of outbound, how to drive, generate leads, versus let's call warm referrals, warm outreach, and what many people are starting to refer to as go-to network is a huge area that I'm spending a lot of time on. I believe deeply that outbound, of course, will always have a place, or I should say cold outbound, but I think it used to be, and still is for many, where it's the standard. It's, okay, we come here, let's build in that cold outbound process, and here's your sequence, and here's your message, and here's this, and get going, and it's going to work. And we know that doesn't, it should work to some degree, but the level of it working is getting harder and harder and harder. And we just know that because a year ago, I got 50 emails a day, and now I get 90 emails a day. And tomorrow it's going to be 150. 10,000 AI companies, I'm making up a number. It didn't exist last year, and now they do. And half of them are sending emails. It's just getting worse and worse. Harder to stand out unless you know someone, or you have a connection, or someone can introduce you, or there's a reason they should pay attention to you. So I don't say we shouldn't do cold outbound. We should, because it's not rocket science, and we just got to iterate and optimize and find the ways to make it work. And there's lots of tools and technologies and ways to make cold work. But without a doubt, it's harder than it ever was, and it's getting harder. And focusing first on what we all know we should have always been doing, and those of us who are old like me used to do and then forgot about it because it was easy to do cold, are going back to what we should have always been doing, which is start first with what's in front of us. Who do we know? If we're looking for our first 10 clients, how do we get them without even thinking of the word cold outreach? If we're looking for our next 10, how do we leverage customer referrals and other technologies to understand things? It used to be that I'd say, hey, Ricky, if Ricky was my CEO and I was an AE, I used to say, hey, Ricky, is it okay like peruse and go through your LinkedIn connections, and anyone I see, maybe you'll introduce me to them? And it was hard and in the butt. And most people said they did that, but never did. Oh yeah, I did it, but they never did. Go ask CEOs how many times one of their AEs asked them for an introduction. Almost never, right? A couple of times.
Sean can confirm.
Yeah. wasted opportunity. But now there's so many tools and technologies that we can leverage to make all that type of stuff so easy. And like cold outbound, we can build it into a process. And there's a tool called Bronto, for example, by a company called Comsor, which is they really help you understand your network, and not just your LinkedIn connections, but your real network. And then I can compare that to Ricky's network. And if we've got some matches, I can see Ricky's network and I can say, Ricky, I can see you're attached to this person. Can you introduce me to this person? And vice versa. It's like we can see each other in one spot. So there's some incredible technology and tools out there that just make warm outreach or warm strategy 100 times easier than it's ever been. And so I'm spending a lot of time focusing on those types of conversations and strategies while we are figuring out cold outbound on the side, if you will. But that's secondary. And it depends on the stage of company.
Yeah, I like that. You speaking our love language. You're talking about going back to old school ways of just engaging with people, working out their needs, and then through that, working on the motions. Whereas everyone's fallen into the lazy trap of just, this is what worked at my last company, therefore I've got a playbook. If I just applied here, even if it works to 70%, it will still be a hit. To your point, like AI has just ruined everything. There's just, even LinkedIn. You talked about LinkedIn and the number of comments that are now written by AI. You can tell, I'm like, you're wasting your personal brand by associating yourself with that. So, but we're obviously in this, I don't know, interesting phase. How do you think it's going to play out? What are you recommending to these companies as they're progressing to the next? What does the next 2-3 years look like? Because surely you are using AI to advantage at some point in time without really. So how do you structure that?
Yeah. So I believe AI technology in general, we should always be trying to figure out how do we leverage it to be more efficient and more effective, but not to replace the relationship or the human connection. I want to use it in the background. I want to use it to say, when I'm building my prospecting list, how can I leverage technology and AI capabilities so it'll take me 10 minutes instead of 5 hours? I want to leverage AI because if I'm doing some campaigns that I don't need to do something that is customized and personal, like I'm sending out newsletters, or there's certain things that can be done leveraging different technologies, you're crazy not to learn and take advantage of those things. I like your love language, Ricky. I hate seeing AI on LinkedIn. I hate it. I think anyone who uses AI for their posts, it's so obvious. Listen, I'm not going to say I haven't used AI to help me ideate a little bit.
Sure.
But that's different than copying and pasting what ChatGPT told me and putting it into my LinkedIn. I've never done that and never will. And 9 times out of 10, if it's obvious, and you can tell. And when someone does that, I just say to myself, I'm reading this post. I know it's not them. So why am I interested? I could get this anywhere. I don't need to follow Ricky anymore because Ricky's not doing anything that helps me learn about Ricky. Ricky's just use freaking ChatGPT. So I have no interest in Ricky's brand anymore.
You should have interest in Ricky whatsoever, regardless whether it's through ChatGPT or whatnot. But
so I agree with you, Rich. I think a lot of people are going to regret using these tools because they think it's easy and it saves them time. But at what cost? I think they're going to regret it. And I see it in our community too. I can even see in our Slack community some people using it, and I don't like it. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Sean's using AI at the moment. He's an AI interpreter. He's not even real.
It sounds like Sean's a robot. Exactly. Yeah. I think I heard all that, Sean. So if I go off track with my answer, you can tell me you didn't hear me properly, but I think I did. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, we didn't get that at all.
No, please do. This is fun. So yes, I think it's already hit. I think people or anyone with, I'm a bit of a jerk. I'm going to say anyone with half a brain understands that a relationship is the only thing that freaking matters. And I think people are quickly understanding that. I think people who are sending out 500, we used to call it spray and pray, right? Tons of emails that were not customized, and it was the same shit, and it was obvious. Those had very little effectiveness rates, very low effectiveness rates. But a lot of people would say, I don't care because it takes me 2 seconds to do it. It didn't cost me anything. Those people are probably regretting it because they ruined their TAM and now no one wants to talk to them and nothing is forever. And they're probably having a hard time because they were spraying and praying for many years. And I think that's the danger. Obviously, we want to find the ways to, again, be effective and efficient, but not at the cost of building a proper relationship. And that's why, of course, and we all see it, you guys see it in your business and all the companies you work with, that events, real discussion matters more than anything. People are spending on events again in big ways because they know that matters and it actually moves the needle. Dinners, right? All I hear is CMOs saying, oh, we're doing exclusive dinners. And we're going to do it at Porch too, because it works, right? A, it's fun, and B, it works. If I can sit down with 30 people in my ICP, buy them a dinner and have a great conversation, I'll take being able to turn 10% of those into something that benefits my business. And using my silly numbers, let's say I got 30 people, 10% of those, pretty easy. If I can convert just 3 of those into something, and I spent $3,000 on dinner, and that converts into something, there's a way better chance of doing that than emailing 500 people with a 40% open rate, 5% reply rate, hoping that one of those turns into an SQL, and hoping you can get a relation. It's crazy. So yeah, I'm with you, man. And I think anyone who has been around the block understands it and knows it. They're just trying to figure out how to be creative because I can't get my ICP to come to. Everyone wants to take them to dinner, so they can't go to all these dinners. Yeah. So what do you do now?
That's it. I love it though. I think we're big fans, hence why we even jump on a plane and go help dye the river green in Chicago and just have beers and dinners with people, right? Just have good conversation. But to your point, it still needs to be somewhat strategic. You can't just abuse that relationship. Otherwise, people get sick and tired of hosting or going to those dinners 7 days or 5 days a week. Anyway, my last question here, Neil, what are you excited about for the rest of the year? We're now in April 2024. What does the rest of 2024 look like for Neil? What are some of the big wacky ideas you're working on? Give us a window into that.
I don't know if they're wacky. I am, for my own learning and for the companies I support, I do want to learn a ton more about the AI capabilities and how to leverage them. Every day I hear about a new tool or a new something to try. Clay is all the buzz about how to leverage Clay for outbound and all the things that provides. So there's tons of learning I want to do. I'm a self-learner, and when I hire people, I make sure they're self-learners. I don't know how anyone could survive without wanting to keep learning and learning. So that's really important. That's a big part of my career and my life the rest of the year. Events are a huge part of what I'm focused on. So both recommending and trying to encourage events of different types and shapes and sizes for my clients, but also for my Porch business. We're starting to do more and more events in the Toronto and Canada because that's just a very different type of business, but it is the most impactful way to build relationships and to get our members to see the value and to love our business. I can slap them 20 times, or I can have a beer with them and talk. It doesn't compare, right? So whether you're a mission-based business or you're selling a product, it just doesn't compare. So yeah, I'm focused in those areas, and I'm a learner, right? So Porch is the first true business I've owned. My fractional CRO business is a solopreneur. Different, right? The product is me. It's a very different type of business. Whereas Porch, there's a product. There's members, there's membership fees, there's partners, we have monetization models. And so I'm learning every day. I'm learning how to do that properly, all the different things that any entrepreneur would learn. We're testing, we're running data. We have incredible data that shows that if we do an onboarding with them properly, we're 9 times more likely that they'll retain and not churn. And if we don't, then we're screwed and they're likely going to be gone. And so we're trying to figure out how to force them into that onboarding. Things that lots of companies have been figuring out over the years. We're pumped and we're excited, and I'm just honored to meet you guys in the flesh here. Well, I'm in the flesh and
3D.
talk. Yeah.
One day we'll catch up in 3D, mate. But
Oh.
yeah, love what's coming up for you. Neil will take you through a quick fire round. This is a question. Oh, yeah, I'll blend it into a quick fire round now because yeah. When you do hang up your boots, what do you want to be known for?
Oh wow, you're gonna make me cry. What do I want to be known for?
You're open to crying, mate. There's no problem. Yeah.
To be 2 years ago, my answer would have been different because Porch didn't exist. But I love what I do as a fractional CRO. I'm honored that CEOs trust me and pay me good money to help them. But it is just helping them grow their business and make money. It's about helping humans be successful in their life and be happy. And so when I hang up the boots, I hope Porch exists in a sustainable business long after I'm gone. And that would be very freaking cool. And I'd be so proud of that. So I think that would be probably where I'd focus.
That's pretty cool. And I know you're already thinking long term because you've had Hunter involved in the process.
Right.
So you obviously want this to be a long-term mission, and hopefully it continues beyond you and the next generation and the generation after. So yeah, I wish you all the success and everything that comes with it, Neil. I know you're doing it for all the right reasons. We'll take you to the easier ones now. Favorite sports team? Do you have one?
I'm a huge rugby fan, but rugby is just not as popular in Canada. My kid plays rugby. I grew up in rugby, but I'm a Toronto guy, so I'm going to have to say the Toronto Maple Leafs, hockey, which I'm a glutton for punishment because we lose all the time. Anyway, Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
They're on tonight, so I'm going to watch them tonight. But Toronto Maple Leafs would be my favorite team.
Nice. Good to hear. Favorite music genre? What are you listening to? What's on your playlist?
Oh, my kids make fun of me because I'm huge variation. I like everything under the sun. But if I have to pick something, I'm an old school rap guy. I'm old.
Look at Sean's face. Yeah. There's another one for hip hop. Yeah.
So I would listen to Public Enemy, Tribe Called Quest, Bill the Soul.
Yeah,
those are kind of what I like.
Nice. Good to hear. Another fellow hip hop person who's jumped on the show and is doing amazing things. I didn't. It's not like Neil told me before. This has just happened organically. Favorite movie of all time, Neil? Do you have one?
I'm a movie buff. I would say I like tear-jerking movies. I would say We Are Marshall is one of my favorites. Love that movie. And then some classic guy movies like Gladiators and Usual Suspects. I love those movies as well. But We Are Marshall might be my favorite. I love that movie. I probably watched it 20 times.
That is your favorite. Mate, what about this? You've traveled around the world for business and for pleasure, I'm sure, with family, but is there a favorite place you'd like to get back to, or is there a place on your bucket list that you haven't been?
I mentioned to you earlier, my family had a place in Port Macquarie, Australia, which is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. Australia in general, but Port Macquarie, so I was very lucky to go there multiple times. I love that. I'd love to go back. My daughter might be going for exchange in Australia and New South Wales coming up soon, so maybe I'll be able to come visit her. But I think I'm not necessarily a huge travel guy as much as once I get to places, I love it. So I would say my favorite place is simply my kitchen with my family. Anything with my family, and we love to gather in the kitchen and talk. So I'd say that's my favorite place. But I'm not sure that's what you're really
or on your porch. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, on my porch.
Yeah. So if you are on your porch, deserted by yourself, right? You've now gone into this place where it's going to be your last meal, right? Okay. You're in the corner. You get given 2 jars. One says peanut butter crunchy. On the left is peanut butter smooth. It's your last meal. We're having to do this, otherwise people try and get out of this. So you're cornered. You have to pick one. Which one are you going for? Crunchy or smooth?
Do I get to assume that they're good quality peanut butters?
100%, like the best of the best, organic, everything you want. Everything you ever wanted in the peanut butter is the healthiest version you're gonna get.
Then I'm gonna say smooth because I think a good quality smooth kicks ass. It's awesome.
Oh mate, we loved your response up until then, but that's okay. We'll take you.
You guys are both crunchy guys.
Very crunchy.
that's why I asked about quality. I think if it's like mediocre or not good, then
You'll have crunchy.
Out. But
Okay.
I think the quality stands out in a smooth because it's not disguised with anything.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I'll hit stop. I'll hit the stop button. So thank you, Neil, once again for coming on, and thanks you for sharing all your insights, mate. Loved it.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I had a lot of fun, man. So thank you.